Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to look at EMR or Elastic Map Reduce. Now this is the industry-leading cloud big data platform for processing vast amounts of data using open source tools such as Apache Spark, Apache Hive, Apache HBase, Apache Flink, Apache Hoodoo, and Presto. And with EMR, you can run petabyte scale analysis at less than half the cost of traditional on-premise solutions and at over 3 times faster than standard Apache Spark. So all EMR is a solution for big data that's hosted within AWS. So if you have any kind of scenario-based questions talking about big data, I want you to immediately start thinking about Elastic Map Reduce. And the central component of Elastic Map Reduce is the cluster. And a cluster is simply a collection of Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud or EC2 instances. Now each instance in the cluster is called a node, and each node has a role within the cluster, and this is referred to as the node type. So EMR installs different software components on each node type, giving each node a role in a distributed application like Apache Hadoop. So let's look at the different node types. We'll start with the master node, and this is a node that manages the cluster. And the master node tracks the status of tasks and monitors the health of the cluster. And every cluster must have a master node. The smallest cluster that you can have is 1, and that will consist of a single master node. We then have our core nodes, and a core node is simply a node with software components that run tasks and stores data in the Hadoop distributed file system, or HDFS, on your cluster. And multi-node clusters have at least one core node. And then we have a task node, and this is completely optional, but a task node is a node with software components that only runs tasks and does not store the data in HDFS. And like I said, they are optional. So this might be what an EMR cluster looks like. We've got here our master node, we've got our core nodes around here, so we've got 4 different ones, and they can each communicate with each other. So that's key to know. Now, the thing about EMR is with all your log data, it's stored here. It's stored on the /mount/var/log. And the problem is if you lose your master node, it's stored within that master node. So you're going to lose all your log data. So if you have an outage or somebody goes in and terminates that cluster, you are going to lose that. And that can be problematic. And what you're going to see in the exam is scenarios where it's talking about you've got an EMR cluster and you need the logs data on your master node to persist. What should you do? Well, essentially what you do is you move your log data over to S3. So you can configure a cluster to periodically archive the log files stored on the master node to S3. And this ensures that the log files are available after the cluster terminates, whether this is through a normal shutdown or due to an error. And Amazon EMR archives the log files to Amazon S3 at 5-minute intervals. Now, it's important to remember that you can only set this up when you're first creating the cluster. You can't create the cluster and go do this later. You need to do it when you first set up the cluster. So it can be a very popular exam topic. I just want you to remember that you can persist your log files to S3, and you need to do that when you set up the cluster. So going into the exam, just remember that EMR is used for big data processing. It consists of a master node, a core node, and optionally a task node. By default, log data is stored on the master node, and you can configure replication to S3 on 5-minute intervals for all your log data from the master node. However, this can only be configured when creating the cluster for the very first time. So that is it for this lecture, everyone. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.